Go ahead.
Hey, good evening and welcome to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin, coming to you from the gun store here in Las Vegas. I understand that we are coming on in part of a Dodger game that was on KSHP radio. If you're a Dodger fan, sorry about that.
I am a Dodger fan.
Would you rather listen to the...
Well, no, we're here now.
Okay, we're here now. We are here now, and hopefully they're recording the Dodger show for you. Anyway, we are here with our show, Fired Up, which is all about guns, politics, and related self-defense issues. We are live every Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. here on KSHP, and we're also shown on YouTube. There's video being run of this that comes on just a few moments behind the radio show. So if you miss anything and want to see it, you can still see Fired Up. Go to YouTube and clock in at Fired Up with Bob Irwin. We always have guests on the show, and what we talk about on this show is use of guns for self-defense and a little bit on gun politics. A lot of that actually tonight. My guest tonight is murder defense specialist Clark Patrick. Welcome to the show again, Clark.
Thanks, Bob. Good to be here.
We're going to talk about first some cases of people getting involved in shootings, and we got a little, quite a bit on political stuff. We've got a lot of gun laws running down the pike to try and eliminate firearms in America, apparently, and we're going to talk about some of those and what the dangers are. Clark, could you just give a little bit of your background for new listeners? There may be some that thought they were Dodger fans out there.
Sure, Bob. I grew up in Montana on a farm. I've been around firearms my whole life, a lot of hunting throughout my life. In the early 80s, spent some time with the Army as a tank commander. Kind of went through school, and for the last 10 and a half years now, I've been practicing law here in Las Vegas, solely in murder defense.
All right. And hopefully you won't meet Clark in his professional manner. Because if you meet him in a professional manner, it's going to be because you have been charged with a crime that you would at least get life imprisonment for. So who dropped off the call? The radio show. The radio dropped off? Okay, so we're just doing YouTube. Just on YouTube. Okay, they decided to leave the game on. So yeah, that's okay.
That's all right.
So we'll be on YouTube only, which is, it's hard to tell here what we're doing. So we got to look at you if we're on YouTube. This first story comes from Bearing Arms and WBBJ Eyewitness News 7 in Lexington, Kentucky. The story reads, it was a typical Tuesday night when two men came into a liquor store wearing masks and holding an object which looked like a gun in an apparent armed robbery attempt. The 61-year-old clerk say one man threatened, "I'm going to rob you," over and over again several times. He didn't put up a fight until one of the suspects walked over and punched him square in the nose. That's when the clerk reached for a pistol hidden underneath the cash register. He fired one shot, narrowly missing the suspect. That actually hit the wall behind the suspect. He told police, "I'm the shooter." Now, the clerk said, he told the police, I'm 61 years old. This is the first time I have ever shot a gun. No wonder I shot the wall, but I really meant to hit him." After firing the shot, he chased the men out of the store and fired once more, missing again. Investigators say the entire incident was caught on surveillance cameras, but they're not ready to release the tape. The clerk suffered only minor injuries, the punch in the nose, during the robbery. A captain with the Lexington Police Department said the clerk was justified in shooting at the suspects. If they're in fear of death or serious bodily injury, they have a right to defend themselves. So if someone finds themselves in those circumstances, then obviously has the legal right to do that. That's not the interesting part of this case. Of course, he had the legal right to do it. As a firearms trainer, this drives me crazy. We have a guy who keeps a pistol there for self-defense in case of robberies.
And has never fired it. That's not good.
And what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, he's lucky he didn't shoot himself in the foot. The two things he really did wrong was, one, he told the cops he meant to hit the guy. I was in fear for my life, and I defended myself. Don't be telling the cops that you were trying to shoot the guy. And the second one was once they ran out of the store and he followed them and started shooting in the street. Again, that you can't do that. You can't chase after somebody who's trying to get away and shoot him. And had he hit somebody in the street, even because he's obviously not going to hit the robbers, then this may have turned out considerably different.
He's very lucky that he didn't hit some bystander outside.
Yes.
And the other problem, as Clark got to, was when you chase the guy, who's the aggressor?
Yeah, at that point, the tables have turned, and now you're the aggressor.
He pulls a gun.
Yeah.
And says, I was defending myself. This idiot was chasing me. He'd already fired at me once. I'm running away. And, the problem with lawsuits that come of that is you have to defend them. In most cases, the jury's going to look at that and say, well, you didn't hit anybody and you weren't really harmed. And, to hell with this. We're not going to entertain a lawsuit. But who pays your lawyer to defend you in the lawsuit?
In the lawsuit. So sure. That, and had he hit anybody outside the store, then not only would he maybe be facing the criminal charges, but he'd be absolutely facing a civil lawsuit.
Absolutely.
It's real expensive in a hurry.
If you have a gun, get some training. We teach a class here at the gun store for concealed carry permit 3 times a week. You can sign up at our website, thegunstorelasvegas.com. The class in itself is free. You learn a lot of stuff about not doing this by mistake.
Well, and I'm sorry, Bob, but talking about the civil lawsuit, I mean, it's silly to tell the police that you meant to hit the guy, but that line that it's the first time I've ever shot a gun is the plaintiff attorney's dream in a civil lawsuit. They would just play that up to no end, and even though
had no practice,
training, no idea what you're doing, and you shot little Johnny over here, 6 years old, and you're
done for life. Absolutely done for life.
All bad.
Your life will never be the same.
So if you get in a self-defense situation and you have to pull and use your firearm, and the police come to talk to you, you tell them, I will cooperate. I'm happy to cooperate. I will tell you everything that you want to know after I have consulted with my attorney.
There you go. It's easy. Just don't talk. Hey, I'm Fred. Here's my ID. I don't know the guy laying on the floor, and I want to talk to a lawyer before I talk to you. Calm down. You know what the lawyer's going to say when you call him on the phone? He's going to say, don't say anything till I get there.
Absolutely.
Things that seem cool to you, like I've never fired a gun before, aren't cool. They come back to bite you. KMBC TV9, Kansas City, homeowner told police she heard loud banging, knocking on her door just after 11 p.m. The woman got her gun because she could not see who it was at the door and was scared for her life. That's her wording. A longtime friend and neighbor of the woman said who didn't want to be identified, said this woman lives in the house. She's in her late 40s, uses a cane to get around. The friend said the woman's 2 sons sometimes stay at the home, but her toddler granddaughter is there almost all the time. The woman was questioned and released from custody, told investigators she shot the man after he kicked in the front door and he came after her. Police said the man, whose name had not been released, was a friend of a relative who had been at the home earlier. He had been asked to leave because the homeowner, the lady with the cane, said he had illegal narcotics on him. So apparently he left and came back and kicked the door in. The prosecutor's office will review the case and decide if any charges will be filed. This is pretty clean. It's an unknown knock at the door at 11. What she did wrong was open the door to see what's going on. The guy couldn't see who was at the door, and apparently she couldn't see through the people. And then the guy kicked in the door. I'm sorry, she didn't open it. Kicked in the door.
Once he kicks in the door, shoot him.
Fair game. Fairly straightforward case. 11 o'clock at night. You hear somebody at the door, you look out, you can't see anybody, and all of a sudden the door gets kicked in. You got a valid shot there. Having a firearm and knowing how to use it obviously saved her life here. We do teach another class here. Maggie Mordaunt, who's a really well-known local instructor, teaches a ladies self-defense class. The next one is Thursday, April 28th, a couple weeks. You can find it on our website again, thegunstorelasvegas.com, and sign up, particularly aimed at self-defense for women, less upper body strength and small hands and whatever us macho guys think else is wrong with you. But Maggie can address that. And we do teach women to shoot differently because their balance is different and so forth. So there are reasons for this. Associated Press and the Herald Leader in Kentucky, and this is in Phelps, Kentucky, on the 11th, police say a woman fatally shot her estranged ex-husband after he allegedly threatened her. The woman called dispatchers in Pike County early Monday to report the shooting. The preliminary investigation indicated her 37-year-old ex-husband went to the woman's home, made entry into it, and threatened her. The resident victim was armed with a handgun and had an active domestic violence order against the intruder. She shot him. The Pikes County Deputy Coroner pronounced him dead at the scene. Police did not release details of how many times the intruder was shot. Police say no charges have been filed and the case will be presented again to the grand jury for consideration. This is a pretty similar case with one big advantage here. She had a protective order against the guy.
Yep, and that's good, but a protective order is not going to stop him from breaking your door down and killing you.
Absolutely.
That piece of paper is not bulletproof or knife proof, but having it when it's presented to the grand jury is just an extra layer of protection for her, saying, I was afraid for him and I didn't invite him over, and this shows that I was afraid for him, and it'll go much easier for her.
Yeah, I can see this as opposed to the first case that we just did. The protective order indicates that everybody knew this had happened before. Yep. And I've talked to a lot of people who don't want to get a protective order because, it antagonizes their better half, male or female, the way it works. But what you should do, though, is make note. If you're being threatened and you really, for any complicated reason, don't want to go to the police and file a protective order and have the constable come out and hand the guy a protective order, what you can do, though, is keep a journal. Tell your best friend what's going on. You're afraid of this guy and this and that, and he's threatening you and so forth. So you create a record for use in your defense if it comes to this, because now she's got a dead guy on the floor. Yeah. But that piece of paper that says, look, I've reported this, everybody knew this was going on, will save her bacon in a lawsuit or whatever.
And if they threaten you by text, save the text. If they threaten you by email, save the emails. If they leave threatening voicemails, save those. Facebook, all that stuff, save all that. Because then when this comes up, you have a history of that he was a bad guy. Sure. And that when you lay that out for the jury, they look at you and go, wow, no charges. Yeah, that's just what happens. We have advanced and basic pistol classes also at the gun store. You can find those on our website. Those are generally shooting classes rather than self-defense classes. If you want to get a little more skill with your firearm, that's always helpful. Oh, this is really stupid. I read some of that. I read through these things, and I have to go read it twice to be sure somebody actually did this. This is Wave 3 News, WAVE News 3 in Shepherdsville, Kentucky on the 13th, a few days ago. A Hillview woman claims she was shot in the stomach during a home invasion in early April, apparently shot herself, and then lied about the circumstances surrounding the incident, according to the Bullitt County Sheriff's Office. Bullitt County. That's cool. Nice.
Bullitt County, yeah. About 9:30 p.m. on April 6th, the woman called 911 to report a man who broke into her home had shot her. Then on April 13th, the detective filed a criminal complaint against her for falsely reporting the incident. After investigating her statements and analysis of the shooting scene, as well as the security camera footage from a nearby location that showed nobody else in the house, authorities determined that the incident did not happen the way she described it to the 911 operator and to the first responders. Spokesman for the sheriff's office said there's no reason to believe anyone besides the victim was involved in the incident. The case remains open in case further information develops. The spokesman for the police department did come on the air and release information to relieve the safety concerns of the community, that there's some guy who broke into a house and shot this woman in the stomach running around because they were looking all over for him. Turns out there wasn't one. They didn't detail in the story why the woman did this, but apparently, first, I got to tell you, when we talk about crime scene guys showing up, if you really think you're going to fool a homicide investigator or an experienced officer who has been to 150 shooting scenes,
right. Not to mention the CSAs and
the crime scene guys and the blood being in the right place and the door scratches and the pry marks on the door and, you know, all this stuff. When you have a violent crime, there's lots of stuff that I look at as a expert witness in shootings. The attorneys look at as they get in the court reports and go, no, that didn't happen. But especially the crime scene guys, the homicide investigators. You're at the first shooting scene you've ever been at, and you think you're going to fake these guys out. You're not.
It makes you wonder if there was somebody she was mad at that she was going to call and say, this guy broke in.
Fred shot me.
Fred shot me. And, you know.
Or she just crazy and wanted the publicity. She wanted the paramedic to come over because he's cute. You know, who knows? They didn't detail any of the reasons why she might have done this. You can't fool the pros at a shooting scene. I mean, people do on occasion, but it is really, really hard to do, to get all the blood spatter and the scrape marks and the time the neighborhood and so forth.
Not to mention, she's probably fairly lucky she didn't kill herself.
Yeah, she could have been dead before the cops got there, and that would have been not amusing. Then they'd have to reclassify it, I guess, as a suicide.
Right.
But I wish they'd released more information. I'd really love to know what her thinking was doing this. It was probably, as Clark said, she had an ex-boyfriend or somebody, a neighbor she didn't like that she was going to say. Yeah,
it was him.
But it hurt so much when she got shot. It kind of, her plans went awry.
Yeah.
It hurts. Not immediately. You don't really feel much pain from a bullet impact. But within a few minutes and an hour, it really starts to hurt. Lots of damage, and your body will react to that. So don't play with the cops. That's just really dumb. Again, if you have a question or comment on something that we are covering here, you can send me an email at bob@firedupmail.com. I think we got it on the sign up here. Yeah. If you have a question or comment, please feel free to do that. And we will, we answer all of the questions. If you have something specifically for the attorney, just send it to that same address and I'll hand it to whoever you're talking to on the show. We have all our attorneys listed on the website that has our website that has their contact information if you need that. And we do try to answer everything that comes in. I'm going to adjust a little bit. We're only 20 minutes into the show, but there is so much going on today in the last week in gun laws that I had to use more time for some of the stuff the government's doing to you. If you think you live someplace in America, in a broader sense, where guns are restricted, this story is just amazing. This is real. This is current. What one legal scholar termed an attempt to tax the Constitution out of existence. The Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, which is part of the United States, it's a territory of the United States, has enacted an amazingly strict new gun law. What happened was on March 28th, the chief judge of the U.S. District Court of Northern Mariana ruled that the U.S. territory which has a 40-year-old ban on possession of handguns. Always couldn't have a handgun in the Marianas unless you were a cop, period. Anyway, the judge ruled that it was unconstitutional, and he said, because the people of the Commonwealth are part of the American people who have an overwhelmingly chosen handguns as their principal means of self-defense. And the Second Amendment applies in the Commonwealth of the Marianas as well as anywhere else in the United States.
Absolutely.
Absolutely correct. In reply to the court order, however, the Commonwealth Senate, they have senators and representatives like we do. The Senate runs most everything. Passed a strict gun control bill on April 7th, this April 7th, sending the bill to the governor, who signed it into law last Monday. This is the law. For you people in California, you think you've got laws. The new law has a host of measures bundled into what it includes: a special $1,000 excise tax on all handguns sold.
Wow, a tax stamp's only $200
for a machine gun.
For a machine gun.
Now there's a Marianas Commonwealth excise tax of $1,000 if you purchase a handgun. As the judge said, you have to be able to buy them. So now there's a $1,000 excise tax, a 500-foot gun-free zone around all schools, government buildings, and places of worship. Marianas is a fairly small place.
Right, that could take up half of the island.
You go every school and draw a 500-foot radius around. Anyway, mandatory use of all gun locks on all firearms not in use. Has to be locked unless you're actually shooting it. A ban on carry of firearms outside the home for purposes of self-defense. So you can't carry one for self-defense, even if you paid the $1,000 and whatever. You have a license now with a fee attached. They didn't put the fee in there, but you have to have a license to possess firearms or any ammunition for firearms. It forbids automatically suppressors, short barrel rifles, and machine guns. They're absolutely forbidden anyway. And an assault weapon ban with a 10-round cap on magazine size. They have a definition in there of an assault weapon, which kind of is like California's, that anything taking a detachable magazine. But it's anything with more than 10 rounds, or any shotgun with more than 3 rounds is forbidden, and it's an assault weapon under their new rule, which is in effect. Lawsuits are filed already, obviously.
Hope so.
But this is our future under Hillary, maybe. I don't know. The Supreme Court's held you can tax things, even though you can't just outlaw things.
You can't ban them,
but you can tax them. So
yeah, see that?
That was, I think, part of the Obamacare decision, where they said it was a tax, and now we have a tax on all handguns. Good luck, guys. There are, I can't even imagine that. Anyway, in California, which is currently trying to keep up, has had a new law that changes a lot of what dealers are allowed to do in California. It was killed in committee. The committee didn't vote on it 2 weeks ago. Now that's been reversed. California Assemblyman member Kevin McCarty reintroduced the Responsible Firearms Transfer Act. It's called AB 2459. To make California a little safer. That wording is from the Women Against Violence blog that is out. I subscribe to it. It's a great blog. This law, now it just cleared the committee, so it's got to be voted by the entire California Assembly, I guess. And then it'll go to Governor Moonbeam for signature. And so it could be rattled around. This is not the law yet. It would not go into effect until July 1 of 2017, actually, if it passes in this form. But this was already kicked out of one assembly committee. Now it's in another one, and it passed that one. So it's going to the whole assembly. What it does it requires gun dealers to install security cameras to monitor and videotape their premises and sales areas. In other words, you have to have video of all entryways, hallways, inside safes, inside storage rooms, counters, so forth. Any place where guns may be sitting still, you have to videotape your storeroom and so forth. And the original bill said you had to keep it for 10 years. Now they only have to keep it for 3 years.
Well, it's a little better, but still.
It's still a lot of video.
Yeah.
It prohibits gun dealers, that is FFL holders and so forth, from selling firearms from their homes. Lots of rural areas, especially in Northern California, are 20 miles from a Big Five or a real firearm shop. So they have allowed in the rural counties home businesses. You have your kitchen and you have your legal FFL there. Now the guys that have federal firearms licenses in their kitchen will no longer do that. This will make it so in California you have to have a business location. It can't be your home. It authorizes the Department of Justice to fine dealers for violation. That's California Department of Justice. And the biggest one is it requires all gun sellers to carry liability insurance, meaning that the liability insurance goes beyond the first party. If you introduce the gun into commerce, I sell a gun to Clark and he sells it to his cousin and the cousin murders somebody, the dealer is held liable because the dealer introduced the gun into the state of California, into the general public. Obviously, second party insurance like that, nobody's going to write or be able to afford to carry it. Hopefully that will be taken out because that will be the end of gun shops in California. If we are responsible for guns, this even includes stolen guns. If somebody does a straw sale on you and he passes the FBI check, but he was really a fake buyer, the dealer, again, is the one that's held responsible for introducing that into commerce. So we got to be able to tell the reals from the fakes. And so it's an impossible thing. The liability insurance issue alone will finish gun sales in California, except street sales, of course, because they don't have to do this. So you'd still be able to buy your firearm from Bubba on the corner of 4th and Main, or from the biker gang down the street, but you won't be able to have a dealer do them. And those guys are really bad when you want to return one that's broken. They don't. Yeah, they don't do returns. They don't do returns. Again, comments to bob@firedupmail.com. And if you get a moment, you can also like us or friend us on Facebook. That's on the other side of this. I was going to mention also, I ran into this gentleman at the gun show up the street last weekend. His name is Eric Johnson. He's a district court judge. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's running to be retained in office. He was appointed to the position. A gun guy. He's knowledgeable about firearms and so forth, which does not mean because you own a gun, he's going to let you off of whatever you're charged with. You know, judges don't do that. Even if they like guns, they don't like bad guys. So, but he seems worthy of support. He was a nice guy. We talked about a number of court issues and things that I've run into, and he's listens, which was nice. It was impressive. We're going to end up in a couple of weeks with a whole list on our website, Fired Up with Bob Irwin, a list of judicial offices, and when the primaries are over, of candidates that we're going to back for the assembly and so forth. Media reports are that the Missouri Supreme Court on Tuesday unanimously ruled that a mother can sue a pawn shop for selling her mentally ill daughter a gun that she used to fatally shoot her father. Dealer liability for the sale. This one's a little goofier. The young woman shot and killed her father in 2012 on the day that she bought the gun. She has schizophrenia, and after the event was committed to a state mental hospital after she killed her father.
So the first question then is, was there any prior documented history of mental illness that would have shown up on her background check. And if it wasn't, how were they supposed to know? And I'm sure they did did the Brady check.
Well, this is how they knew. And anyway, the ruling was that the mother can sue the dealer, the pawn shop, Odessa Gun and Pawn, because she said she asked the Odessa Gun and Pawn not to sell her daughter a gun by calling them and saying that. The attorney for the Brady Center to Prevent Handgun Violence says the ruling means Missouri dealers can be held accountable for selling firearms irresponsibly. Odessa Gun and Pawn's attorney says the ruling is concerning for all firearm sellers, who says they rely on the background checks when determining whether or not to sell guns. We use the FBI check.
Sure.
Here's the real problem with this ruling. There's no evidence introduced at all that she actually called the dealer and said that.
Uh-huh. Well, that's a wrinkle. You'd think that would be important to the court, that there was some proof that something prior to the sale that she actually called them.
She recorded it or went there and yelled at them in person or something. And without the evidence that she actually called the shop has no record. They don't record their phone calls. They have no recollection of anybody calling and saying, "Don't sell a gun to Mary Sue." And if they get that call, should they act on it, or should they rely on the FBI check? That's the interesting thing here.
Sure.
And I've got to tell you, we've had this happen. We have had people call and say, "My brother is on his way down there to buy a gun. He just told us he's going to do this." This actually happened. He's, and if he comes in, don't sell him a gun because he wants to go shoot a neighbor. And you know what we do with that? We don't sell the gun. I don't see that we have any choice. Now, that incident happened before we did Brady checks. And I don't know, we would certainly, when we did the Brady check, we would mention that to the Brady check people. We just had this phone call. We have no idea who it was.
Right.
And it could be a frat brother just trying to screw with the guy, or a prank or whatever. But we certainly will take a hard look at that if we get one of these phone calls. We have to. And so it's kind of a way of swatting somebody. You prevent them from buying a gun. It's like calling the police department saying there's a guy about to wander in and talk to you about a parking ticket, and he's crazy and he's got a machete in his boot, and I saw him and he's going to try and hit a cop with a machete. And the next guy that walks in, what do you think the police are going to do?
Throw him on the ground.
Throw him on the ground, draw down on him. They have to. So until we get some way to track that, I don't know. This ruling just drives me crazy, because what the dealer did was they relied on the FBI, and she had no history.
Yeah.
But now they're being sued because the mom says, "I called the dealer."
Well, hopefully the pawn shop's attorney will be successful in defending this.
Yeah, this is only a Supreme Court deciding she could sue. This is not the suit itself. The lower court denied the suit for the same reasons. They checked with the FBI. What else could they do? And the Supreme Court in Missouri, for whatever they're smoking, do they legalize marijuana?
No, not yet. It grows wild there, though, so probably.
I guess it's the rule that anybody can sue anybody for anything, which is true.
Well, I mean, just off the top of my head, the first question you ask her is, "What phone number did you call from, and when did you call?" And then you subpoena her phone records for that phone and see if there is a call from her number to the number of the Odessa pawn shop.
That's why you get the big bucks as a lawyer. That's why you hire a lawyer when you're in trouble. Yes, they think that way. They look for evidence that nobody else thinks is there. Like me. I should have picked up on that. Again, questions or comments to bob@firedupmail.com, and we'll put Eric Johnson to bed here and go back to firedupmail.com. If you would like to call us, that's or send us an email. That would be nice. If you're planning a corporate event, we have machine gun shooting here. As most everybody knows, you can come in and we do groups and things. We got 30 lanes. We can handle a lot of corporate events and things. Call the gun store and ask for Melissa, or hit Melissa at thegunstorelasvegas.com, and she will get you set up. Here we go with another lawsuit. I wasn't kidding at the beginning of the show when I talked about a lot of legal stuff here. Fox News and the Kansas City Star reported on the 13th. This is also in Missouri. Was that the same guys? Huh? Yeah, Missouri Supreme Court. The husband of one of 3 victims in the 2014 shooting at 2 Jewish sites in Kansas has filed a lawsuit over the sale of the shotguns used in the attack. I don't know if you remember the case, but the husband of the woman that was killed has filed the lawsuit in Jackson County Circuit Court. The murderer, he's a guy from Aurora, Missouri, was sentenced to death last year for the shooting that killed the husband's 53-year-old wife at a retirement home in Overland Park, Kansas. 2 others were later killed at a nearby Jewish community center. So this guy got a shotgun. He's 75 years old, and he went and whacked people. A mass shooter guy. The lawsuit alleges that the shooter, who was a felon and prohibited from purchasing guns, used 2 weapons that were purchased by his friend, one at a gun shop and the other at a big box retail store. The friend who did this straw sale, in effect, was given 5 years probation for falsely claiming he was buying one of the shotguns for himself on a federal form that he filled out in a Missouri Walmart. Oh, I left that in. You're not supposed to know it's Walmart. It's a big box store. I didn't say that. This is not Walmart. Anyway, he filled out the form, and the shooter claimed the gun was a present for his son and asked the friend to fill out the form according to his plea agreement. He gets a plea agreement and gets probation. The friend told investigators that the shooter asked for help with the purchase because he didn't have any identification on him. Well, when somebody asks you to help them buy a gun because they forgot their identification,
not a good idea.
Don't go for that. The suit also claims that based on the men's remarks and behavior, employees at the local gun shop and the big box store knew or had reason to know or failed recklessly to know that the shooter was not lawfully entitled to purchase a firearm. I love that wording, lawyer Patrick.
Recklessly failed to know.
Recklessly failed to know.
There's a term of art for you.
Apparently, the lawsuit is claiming there was something in their behavior that would indicate that it was a straw sale.
Yeah, I guess if the shooter said, "Hey, I'm a felon, I can't buy this,"
so I'm having him buy it for me,
right? But other than that, I mean,
more often it's something like that. You know, we get that literally all the time. Clark knows a lot about shotguns. We go over to the gun show, and I need a shotgun to learn how to shoot trap. And I say, Clark, tell me which one is the best. And he looks at a bunch of them, says, try this one. And then he says, yeah, that's the one you want. And then I buy the gun. Is Clark really the buyer? And that's why he was picking out the gun? No, it's because I asked his opinion, and we get that all the time, you know. So it is not, how was it worded? Recklessly failing to know that it was a straw sale. Anyway, we rely obviously on background checks, and you can get sued for failing to do a background check, and also get sued for failing to complete the sale because of behavior clues. And now, examples. We'll get somebody in that, not being a gang expert, hadn't been a cop for a few years, and Clark's had a few gangsters. So somebody comes in and they want to buy a gun, and there's 2 or 3 guys, and the one that is picking out the gun has 3 or 4 tattoos of teardrops and, you know, something on his neck. And then the other guy says, yeah, okay, I'm buying that gun. You know, and you look at that and go, okay. can we say, you know, you look like a criminal to me because you got tattoos? And he says, there's 3 of them there, each of my little sisters that were killed in a car wreck by a drunk driver. Has nothing to do with gangs. Then we don't sell him the gun. Can we be sued because we discriminated against him because of his facial tattoos?
Well, he can, I'm sure he can sue you, but once he does, then again, you can subpoena his criminal history and find out that he was a 3-time felon and say, ha,
You were a 3-time felon, and we guessed right.
yes.
You know,
The problem would be if he was not, and it really was for his 3 sisters, then there could be some problems.
and how do you tell the difference between a straw sale where the guy is acting nervous because it is a straw sale,
Or because it's the first time he's ever purchased a gun,
he's
been in a gun
he's
store.
scared to death, he wants
has
to
no
buy a gun,
idea.
but he's really worried about owning one, and he asks dumb questions and, you know, whatever. People do that. We get a lot of first-time buyers. They don't know anything about guns, and frequently they bring somebody with them to give them advice. And you know, I ran a whole story on the one that turned out to be not a straw sale, because I recognized the guy on camera as being a retired Secret Service agent who was buying a gun and for his wife, and the wife was picking out, you know, and he was picking out, saying, "Here's a good one," you know, and that's the one she ends up buying. If I didn't know the guy, it looks just like a straw sale.
Right?
He's a firearms expert, so he's telling you, "Oh, let's try this one." You know. Yeah. Well, you can't tell the difference, and honestly, folks, the real straw buyers aren't that obvious.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, sometimes it could even be, you know, it could be very innocent. I was buying a shotgun for my wife and picked it out and said, "This is for you," and fill out the forms. And I mean, she has purchased several handguns. She has 4 or 5 blue cards in her name. This was a 20-gauge shotgun. She filled out the form, and I gave the guy my credit card, and he goes, "Oh no."
He has to.
Yeah, so we had to get her, you know, as our debit card. So luckily she had a debit card from the same account, but she has to root around in her purse for half an hour to find it. So, you know, I mean, they catch it. And there was, you know, it's my wife.
When she sees this tape, she's going to know you said that.
What's that?
That she had a hunt around for an hour in her purse.
Well, yeah, the only thing she can pull out quickly from her purse is her Smith & Wesson 38. She always knows where that's at.
I'm not going to challenge that. There's a blog called the Firearms Network. You can find them at firearms.net. They have a blog that have added Fired Up with Bob Irwin to its group of bloggers. And I'm happy to report, starting today, MLN.com, now, big website, is running a column by me every day, apparently. The one was out today, and be another one tomorrow, where we talk about some of these same cases from a little bit different slant, a little different, but I'm going to have a regular column on MLN starting today, actually. And that's kind of cool. We're still having terrorist attacks, and I kind of do this every show, but it bothers me a lot. We're getting lots and lots of people buying guns, and most of them are for defense against criminals. I don't know what has happened in Las Vegas, but you're all aware of the home invasions, and I mean, we just had a kid killed in a liquor store. They ran on Channel 8 a piece of all 4 of the suspects, a lady and 3 guys that robbed a store and killed a guy. They'll kill you for your cell phone or less.
Yes.
Anyway, if you are in a situation where you become the threatened victim, that's why we do some of these stories. Your first option, if you can, is to withdraw, run, get out of the way, get out of the area. When you get clear, call the police, write down what you saw and what closed so you remember it, and let the police chase the guy down. If you are not able to run away, I was talking to a lady this afternoon in front of the store, that there was a fight outside her hotel room, and there ain't no back door. Yeah, it says, what do I do? You know, sometimes you cannot withdraw either because you can't leave your little kid there and run, or your spouse or whatever. If you can't run, if possible, hide from the people, which is where we got with her. If they come in, or you think they might try and come into your room, get in the back of the room, get behind something that covers you at least a little bit, maybe a mattress because you think they're bulletproof because they are on television. You're going to discover they're probably not, but it looks good on TV.
Sure.
You know, and make them at least come to you. Hide if you can. If they break the door, they don't see anybody in the room, they may just turn around and run back out because they're looking for somebody to rob or rape. If you can't do either one of those and they're still coming through, you call 911 if that's possible. Here, you've got about 7 minutes before the police show up. In the story she told me today, it took over 15 minutes for the police to get there. And I'm not going to argue that. It was in the middle of town. It probably didn't. It probably was closer to 5 or 6, but it seems like 15.
Seems like it, sure.
But it really does. Time compresses. Anyway, if you can't run and you can't hide, fight. At least put some damage on the guy so that they can find, they'll be looking for the guy with the black eye or the scalding coffee in his face or something. Do whatever you can. Don't be a victim that just sits there and lets somebody rape you or kill you. The people that fight have better odds of surviving statistically. Do what you can to save your own life. If you have a concealed carry permit, carry your gun all the time. One of my pet peeves in concealed weapon class is people come in to renew, and we occasionally ask the class, do you always carry your gun? And the most common answer is sometimes, just when I'm going someplace that's really dangerous.
Every place is really dangerous.
If there's a place that's really dangerous, first, don't go there. Do something else, you know. If it's so dangerous you feel you need to carry a gun, go somewhere else. 2, bad guys look for you at places you don't expect to be robbed, so it's a surprise. So carry your gun. You will get attacked when you don't expect to be attacked. Because if you followed my advice, you're not going to the places you expect to be attacked.
Right.
So better to have the gun and not need it than the other way around. I encourage people personally all the time. They come in and say, you know, my boyfriend or my husband or I want to get a 44 Magnum or 45 automatic. If it's too big to comfortably carry all the time, you won't carry it. Get a small enough gun you can carry it without worrying about it, and that way you'll have it. It is your duty as an American citizen to protect the United States from terrorists and criminals also. Militia is all of the people. Carry your gun. Couple things on upcoming events. The Nevada Firearms Coalition is having its annual banquet April 23rd. It's at the Gold Coast Hotel Casino. www.nvfac.org, the Nevada Firearms Coalition, nvfac.org. It is the state association of the National Rifle Association. A fellow named Don Turner runs it. He is a huge advocate for your gun rights. We're going to have a big fight with this bill coming up now, Proposition 1, which says everybody gets a background check unless it's someone living in your same house. The wording on that says it exempts people who live in the same house, and then the people pushing it say it'll reduce domestic violence.
Okay.
But the domestic people are
living in the same house.
Exempt from the background check. And that may change, but it looks like it'll go to the legislature anyway. Western Trails Gun Show is going to be on April 22 and 23 at the East Side Cannery.
Friday and Saturday?
Yeah. Or is that it? That should be Saturday and Sunday. Is that the wrong dates?
I think the 23rd is Saturday, isn't it?
The 23rd is Saturday. So it's probably the
23rd and 24th.
Anyway, East Side Cannery, you can find Western Trails Gun Show on the web and or call them 702-222-1948. 702-222-1948, and find out what the real date is that Bob probably has wrong here. I'll fix that next week. Las Vegas Gun Show will be again at the Sports Center. Why do I have him on? Get to the big chart.
Just saying.
Cross off, Patrick. The next Las Vegas Gun Show up here at the Sports Center will be July 16 and 17 on East Sunset. We'll try and hit all these shows just before they are. Next week, we will be here again on Tuesday from 5 to 6 on 1400 AM KSHP radio, or the Dodgers will be on. But you can catch us on YouTube at Fired Up with Bob Irwin with my guest. Next week will be the homicide detective, Phil Ramos. I should have had him on. We were talking when I was doing this story about the lady who shot herself.
Yes, absolutely.
Somebody else, because he looked bad and goes,
long
"Are
time.
you kidding me?"
Right? Yeah, no, Phil's a good guy. He was a long-time Metro homicide detective.
And great guy. Anyway, he'll be back with us. Your questions and comments to bob@firedupmail.com. And be sure to friend Fired Up with Bob Irwin on Facebook. I threw in one more story in case we ran a little short, and we did. This is a good story. This, Clark's got to read it because I didn't send him this outline ahead of time. I just put this one in just now because it was reported yesterday, day before yesterday. This is in South Florida. A 29-year-old man was arriving at his apartment, as he usually did, at 6 a.m. in his Porsche when he was approached by a man who demanded he hand everything over. This is in Pembroke Pines, Florida. A captain with the Pembroke Pines police said rather than comply, the intended victim with his legally concealed weapon, he pulled his gun from his waistband. He fired 3 times. As he did so, the second suspect tackled the victim to the ground. The thieves now managed to steal the victim's jewelry, cell phone, and his gun. Fortunately for him, they didn't kill him. They then ran through the breezeway and disappeared. Police found blood at the scene of the crime, suggesting the victim was struck by at least one of the suspects was hit by one of the victim's bullets. The victim works as a club promoter. Police believe he may have been followed home and targeted. Investigators are communicating with area hospitals, obviously, to see if anybody's come in with seeking medical treatment for a recent gunshot wound. A late report that just as we were going on air tonight, the police department had a bulletin that said they have identified one of the suspects.
Nice.
And expect both of them to be in custody shortly. Here's a guy that is making some mistakes. We've got a tactical mistake, but the biggest mistake is his routine. He's a target. The guy is driving a Porsche. He's nicely dressed. He wears lots of jewelry. He, does rap, hip hop things, and nightclub stuff. He comes home at 6 a.m., around 6 a.m. every time. Not very smart. If you are an obvious target, nicely dressed with jewelry and whatever, and driving a Porsche, you want to vary your routine a little bit because you're setting yourself up for bad guys who notice, first, every time you leave the club, you drive that way. And then, pretty soon they have a pretty good idea where you're going. When someone attacks you, distance is your friend. As you're drawing your gun to fire, move away from the threat. Backing away will create distance. The more distance you have, if it's a gunfight, if you practice, you're a better shot than he is. So the distance, the greater the distance, the more likely that you'll win the gunfight. It'll also prevent the second thug, as in this case, from tackling you because he didn't know there was another guy there.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened in Walmart a year or so ago.
Yeah, when that was one of our concealed weapons students was killed in that Walmart deal where the 2 cops were killed.
Or the big box store.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we don't say Walmart on the air. There are always more bad guys than you see. When we were talking earlier about the guy who chased the people out to the car, there's another guy in the car with a gun.
Yeah.
Or another guy standing in the car with a gun, or waiting in the car with a gun. There's always more than you can see. This guy is really lucky he ain't dead, that when they were able to knock him down and took his gun, they didn't shoot him. That's a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
Or these guys were really just punks and they weren't
Yeah.
real thug killer types like we get these days. For whatever reason, once they got his wallet and his jewelry and his gun, they ran away. We'll find out, because I'll have something next week on who they were. I will bet you they stalked this guy for 2 weeks,
Right.
to find out where he was going, and there he was. It's dramatically difficult to plan ahead enough, but you must be aware of your surroundings. The first thing, when we talk in the police academies, when I was teaching about gunfights, the first thing you don't want to be is a stationary target. If somebody's firing at you, move some way toward it, away from it,
Right.
sideways, something. Don't be standing so you're still there when the second bullet arrives. Make him try and find you. This was in the dark at 6 a.m. I left that out of the story, but he's arriving in the dark at 6 a.m. when this took place. So it's very likely the second guy was there and he just couldn't see him. But boy, that's really scary. Don't make a victim out of yourself by making yourself an obvious target, flashing your jewelry, things like that. In part of my misspent youth, I was a friend of one of the bodyguards of Samuel Davis Jr. way back, and that's one of the reasons he was always a target. Although, unless he was doing some major show or something, the jewelry he was always wearing, most of it was fake. He
Sure.
had copies of everything, and he kept the real stuff. He only wore that when he's on Johnny Carson or at a big premiere or something. But the idiots don't know that.
No, not at all.
It's his persona, so he's got to look like this. And that's a celebrity thing. We all expect celebrities are wearing real jewelry. They really aren't, except at the Academy Awards.
Yep, only the big
When they're getting the trophy and when they walk off stage, they switch it. And give them something different. But if you try to make yourself look like a target, somebody's going to treat you as a target.
Absolutely. Yeah. All the time.
It's just tough. We're done. We're out of outline. I appreciate your tuning in to Fired Up. As I say, next week we'll be back with Phil Ramos. I'm going to save that story and ask him about it when he's here, because that's just too cool. I'm sure he's run into that over his career. That's a self-inflict. And you wonder if that's a suicide gone wrong. It's just trying to kill himself and didn't.
Or it was either a suicide gone wrong or a setup, or she just wanted attention. But remember, always never recklessly fail to know something that you. I love that.
He's back at the
straw
sale. They recklessly failed to know that there was
not the right guy buying the gun. Yeah,
because
I may use that in court someday.
I no doubt we'll see you there sometime, Mr. Patrick. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. You all have a good evening, and we'll see you next week, same time. Thanks for watching.